What's up, everyone? It is Thrift Barringer alongside my partner in crime, Richard Holdridge. Richard, just unbelievable. The amount of great sports that's been happening within our area over the last several days. And, I'm here at Georgia College and State University is where I've been broadcasting today and tomorrow and yesterday. But I'm actually at a hotel room because I stayed the night. I'm going to be calling 16 games in 4 days. Pretty incredible. Had a long night last night, long day of broadcasting today coming up, but we got border wars happening, state championships coming up later on. Just a great time to be in media right now. And we are live again. Richard, you're about to head to border wars. I'm getting ready here, and about 3 o'clock is when the Final Four for the 4A starts for GIAA. You can watch that on GIAA.tv. But Richard, how are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing great, Thrift. This is really a great time to be a sports fan in Columbus as we got Final Four action in both Georgia and Alabama. Baseball is starting for the high school level. And then if you're just a casual sports fan that just wants to come out and see some championship teams, I mean, there's really not a better opportunity. And the
Yeah.
fact that the GIAA championships are going to be right in our own backyard at
Come on.
Columbus State University.
Exactly right. And I appreciate Brett Taylor and Jeremy Hayes and a guy named Tony allowing me this opportunity to now do my second state championship little run, if you will. Did the football one, called 4 games, and now I'm going 16 games because you do Final Four and state. But a lot of fun yesterday. Did 4 3A games, two for the girls, two for the boys. Did it with a guy named Ben Spicer, extremely talented broadcaster, works in the Tallahassee area, does a lot for college football and does a lot for DR7, which is a 7-on-7, just huge company that goes all across the nation and gets hundreds of teams to play in these tournaments. He works with Jeremy Hayes and them there, and Jeremy brought him up, thought we'd be good together. We called a few games, and we're going to call some more today. Richard, you'll be a part of the state championship broadcast because today, and we'll promote more about the GIAA and the games coming up. But Richard, you're going to be at Glenwood because we got some great Border Wars games going on, and they're actually happening right now. This is pre-recorded, so when we're watching this game, Richard's going to be calling Glenwood versus Lakeside. Then you got Glenwood versus Pacelli, and some of the other games you'll be doing, Richard.
Yeah, it's going to start at noon. Actually, while this show is being played, I will be at Glenwood calling the first game, which is Pacelli taking on Lakeside School. And a lot of people are familiar with Tony Rasmus. He was the longtime head baseball coach of Russell County. He now coaches at Lakeside School down in Eufaula. That is the first game at 2 o'clock. We have Glenwood taking on Pacelli. And then at 4, we have Glenwood once again taking on Stratford Academy. And then Macon East taking on Brookstone. And then Brookstone wraps up the nightcap taking on Bessemer Academy. So 5 games on the campus of the Glenwood School. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm happy just to get back into the swing of things. I mean, I do have experience calling baseball. Ignite Sports gave me the opportunity last year to help call the Columbus Chattahoochee and the Chattahoochee Monsters alongside Tom Callahan,
Yep.
including Noah Shelton also was part of the broadcast. He's a new member of Georgia Alabama Sports Live, and I got to call some games with him as well. And I felt like that gave me a lot of experience just calling baseball games. And, of course, I cannot forget about the championship baseball games that you and I called and some of the regular season games as well. Baseball is
Yeah.
fun. It is definitely the sport that, I played baseball, so it's the sport I'm more familiar with. But I'm going to make the broadcast fun and exciting today, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, Coach Bannon, for allowing us to be there. This is basically like our kickoff. I know we've done some Harris County games, but this is really our kickoff into baseball season because, like I said, no more basketball broadcasts. This is the only day we're going to be there. It's a 3-day tournament, but me and Richard will be calling state championship broadcast Friday and Saturday for GIAA.TV. That's GIAAsports.org, GIAAsports.org, or GIAA Sports on Facebook and Instagram. We got 4 games today. Pacelli, boys and girls, the teams that we cover in our area, Richard, they play at 3 and 7:30. So the Pacelli girls play First Presbyterian Day, who last year did not make it to the state championship, lost in the Final Four, but beat Pacelli in the Elite Eight. So it's a rematch of last year's Elite Eight. First Presbyterian Day comes in 25-3, an excellent program that's won a lot of games, won state championships as recent as the last few seasons. And they come in as a 3 seed. And the Pacelli Lady Vikings, who have not lost since January the 2nd against Newton, they come in as the number 2 seed. So they'll face off at 3 o'clock. Then at 4:30, Richard, you got Loganville Christian taking on the upset team, I think still left, which is George Walton. Last year's number 3 seed who lost to Pacelli in the Final Four, upset the defending state champion Stratford in the Elite Eight last week. They're going to take on Loganville. Loganville made it to the Final Four last year. They're the number 2 seed. Loganville's the number 3 seed. George Walton is the number 7 seed. They upset the number 2 seed Stratford. Winner of that plays the winner of later on that night, Pacelli, who takes on Cristo Rey. The 5 seed Cristo Rey Atlanta has a really good guard. And Jaden Crawford, this guy apparently has played against and played with Jaden Ford. It's one of the top guards in the state. Looking forward to that matchup between those two. That's at 7:39, and of course at 6, right after the 4:30 game, is the other girls' game that has the number 1 George Walton, the defending state champions, taking on. Now I just lost my train of thought. Who they're taking on?
Bullock Academy.
Bullock Academy, and I knew I was going to do this. So many games I got to remember, and then of course
absolutely.
The 2A games that are happening at Bruton Parker. It's 2 locations, 2 days, full of games, 4 classifications having to play, Richard. So glad that I was able to be a part of it. It starts at 3, so make sure you go to GIAA.tv, click on live broadcast. It costs $29.99, but it's worth it because once you pay that $29.99, you get access to 4 games. It's about $7 a game you're paying for. I don't think that's anything, man. And it's presented by the Beck Center. And Richard, we know we're a little familiar with the Beck Center, and Roger Beck, and we appreciate his love and support. He and the Beck Center are the presenting sponsor for the entire tournament. So that is actually really cool. And glad that he's able to do that. And I have to say that every time I do a broadcast presented by the Beck Center. So we'll talk about the 2 games coming up today for Pacelli in just a moment and preview some of the Board Award games, Richard. I know you've been doing your research on baseball, but I do want to talk about what's happened the past 2 days for public schools, specifically in Muskogee County, and how they've been doing. By the way, we still have Central. They got to play in the Final Four. I don't know if it's today or is it tomorrow.
Yeah, it's today.
Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. But Tuesday, we had 3 teams still alive in Muskogee County and the GHSA, Muskogee County, Harris County, Tri-City area. And that was Harris County Lady Tigers hosting an Elite 8 game, Hardaway Lady Hawks hosting an Elite 8 game, and the Carver Lady Tigers hosting an Elite 8 game. Now, the Lady Tigers from Harris County came up short, just lost by, 2 points?
1 point. It was 47-46.
Unbelievable game. And, yeah, man, it was it's heartbreaking, but Stephanie Ramsey Dunn, she did an excellent job. Again, just showing why she's one of the best coaches we have in our area and in the state. Elite 8 just came up short. Had a great win last week. They were down 30-17 to even get to the Elite 8. But there's nothing to hang their hat down on. They should keep their head up high. Excellent season for Coach Ramsey Dunn. As I think they finished 22-5. Richard, what was their final record? Do you know? I'll look that
22 up. 22-4.
22-4. Yeah, they had 3 losses. 2 were Hardaway and Carver, and then that upset to McIntosh. So only 4 losses all season long out of 26 games. That's credit to Coach Dunn. Great season for Brooke Bass and Janai Broom, and we hate to see them. They lost, but great season for them.
Absolutely. When you look at them getting an opportunity to host an Elite 8 game because Cartersville upset Jefferson. Otherwise, they would have been on the road against Jefferson. I thought the atmosphere was electric. Big shout out to Rick Beach from Kutsu Sports and Georgia Alabama Sports Live. He was there in attendance covering the game, and just a great atmosphere up in the county. Just to see that gymnasium, hosting an Elite 8 game, it was quite an accomplishment.
Other games that happened is the Hardaway Lady Hawks, as they beat what I think was one of the best teams in the state, one of the best
Absolutely.
players in the country, and Holy Innocents. Richard, you were there for that. I'm going to let the floor be yours. How did that game play out? Thank you again. We weren't able to go live at any of these games because the GHSA restricts it with the NFHS network. Then we would have to pay a hefty fee, so we weren't unfortunately able to broadcast the whole game. But Richard, you got the final couple of minutes as the Hardaway Lady Hawks make it back to the Final Four. How was that experience? Talk about the game. Give me your analysis.
What a game. An electric atmosphere at the campus of Hardaway. A number of who's who was in attendance, including Columbus State head basketball coach Matt Hauser. You had the CVC coach, Coach Hicks, was in attendance. Just a lot of basketball fans just packed the gymnasium. Holy Innocents brought their fans too. I mean, they are a very good team. And I think that most of that first half and going into the start of the second half, Holy Innocents was leading. By as many as 5. They were controlling the game. And every time Hardaway got a bucket, Holy Innocents came back and got a bucket. But it was the defense. Hardaway was able to get some turnovers, and this is what they do best, transition offense. Once they got a turnover, it was whether Janiah Hardy or you got A.K. Shelton. I mean, how huge was A.K. Shelton in this game with blocks?
Unbelievable.
Absolutely. And Michaela Johnson was doing her thing. I mean, she was stepping up and shooting threes. And she is just a great all-around player. Probably the best starting 5 I have ever seen. I was glad I got to interview Coach Kelly Ellison at the end of the game. What a great interview. And then WRBL's Jack Patterson was kind enough to also do an interview, as him and Jonathan Hoppy from WTVM were there, because obviously this was a huge game. Just an electric atmosphere, but you got to give credits to Holy Innocents Episcopal. This is probably one of the best teams in the state. Hardaway moves on to the Final Four for the second year in a row, where they will face North Oconee. And that is going to be at Fort Valley State on Saturday. I'm just excited for Coach Kendall Mills, the athletic director, the Hardaway family, Coach Ellison. Just what an incredible game to actually overcome, trailing for probably the majority of the game. I know they jumped out to that 21-14 lead, but Holy Innocents went on a run, a 9-0 run, and they were up at the first half. Very close back and forth contested game, but Hardaway was able to pull away. And they won the game 59-53, but it was a lot closer than the 6-point win. They won that game by 6 because they were able to make their foul shots. Holy Innocents was, if one possession went Holy Innocents' way, they could have tied it, and that could have been like, I thought that game was going into overtime. But yeah, I was able to go Facebook Live the last 2 minutes of the game. I appreciate that I was able to have that opportunity. So I got to call the Hardaway Lady Hawks are going to the Final Four.
Excellent job by Coach Kelly Ellison, who, again, all these girls are juniors. She's not losing anyone. They're coming back again next year, which is they do lose
Absolutely.
Lania Meeks, but everyone else returns. And, man, you're talking about a team that has just been clicking on all cylinders, have not lost a game since November. Another team that has played excellent basketball and hasn't lost since January the 15th is the Carver Lady Tigers. They just handle Hart County, 76-57. They beat Peach County 75-39 and Harlem 88-25. They have not had a close game, and they got to take on a really good Wesleyan team. But great job by Coach Anson Hunley, losing in the Elite Eight last year after making it to state championships the previous year and Final Fours and had multiple state championships. Carver finally back in the driver's seat, as I think they're one of the favorites to win it all in 3A. We could potentially, between Pacelli, Carver, and Hardaway, already Glenwood won. So that would be 4 girls state championship teams in this area. Girls basketball, it is at an all-time high, and there's many other great teams we had even talked about, Richard, that had excellent seasons, like a Harris County. Brookstone made the Elite Eight. Central made it to the Sweet 16. Calvary girls Elite Eight and had an excellent season. I mean, just it's at its pinnacle right now, and it's only going to get better. But congratulations to the Carver Lady Tigers. They beat Harts County, and they play Wesleyan coming up this Saturday in the Final Four.
And Thrift, how tough is this region? Because Monroe on the other side of the bracket is making it to the Final Four as well.
Yeah, and we know about Cree. That girl,
Cree,
one single-handedly
absolutely
dominating Everyone. And you talk about a tough region. Two girls teams in that region are in the Final Four. Well, let's move on to yesterday. The Carver Tigers, the running Tigers, led by Coach Eric Pembroke Allen. Wow, Richard. If you were to ask me about it 3 or 4 weeks ago after they went 0-4 against Monroe and Daughtery before the region tournament, they were 0-4 against them. I would have told you, all right, I think, what would be a good season for Carver, making the playoffs, maybe winning one playoff round, make it to the Sweet 16, and then building again. Because remember, last year they only won 6 games, made the playoffs because they upset someone in the region tournament. They're still young. I don't think they have any seniors on the team. They return everyone. So next year is going to be the year with Tony Montgomery coming in his last season as a high school basketball player. And you know what Carver's done? They've just proved not only me wrong, they've proved a lot of people wrong in this area. They're 24-5. Again, ever since losing in the region tournament, and they lost to Daughtery in that semifinal, they have now won 4 straight games. And they've won all those games pretty handily. Aside from Savannah Christian Day, which they won by 5 last week. Richard, we were watching that on the way to go call Brookstone versus Pacelli Elite 8. They've dominated everyone else. They beat Ark, and now they've beaten Hart County by 23 points on the road in a hostile environment. Tony Montgomery back in the Final Four after making it 2 years ago as a freshman. Guess who his coach was? Eric Pembroke Allen, and they won a state championship at Spencer. Could that happen this year? They face, I think, not only the best team in 3A, I think one of the top 4 teams in the state, regardless of the classification. I saw them in person. This Sandy Creek team, they took Monroe to the woodshed by 30 points. Monroe's a really good team. We know about them, Richard. We saw them play. We expected them. Again, they just had a tough bracket. They were the 2 seed and got in the same side that Sandy Creek was on, where Carver, they got a favorable spot, but they took advantage of who was in front of them, and they won all 3 games on the road. That is not an easy task. But now they got to go against the giant, the favorite, in Sandy Creek. But let's talk about that another time. We'll talk about that on Saturday when we promote the Final Four games. Carver Tigers winning and making it to the Final Four. Would not have expected that this year. By the way, Daughtery also made the Final Four. So
unbelievable.
Almost 3 of the 4 Final Four participants, if Monroe would have beat Sandy Creek, came from this region. That's how good it is. And Columbus had an excellent year, too. They lost in the first round, but they made the playoffs and won close to 20 games. But congratulations to Carver Tigers, Richard.
Carver had just an incredible run as a school because both the Carver Tigers and Lady Tigers are going to be at Savannah State this weekend in the Final Four. Kind of has a 2019 feel to it, Thrift. And you remember that Carver team in the Final Four was taking on a very talented Woodward Academy led by Walker Kessler, who now plays for the Utah Jazz. So anything can happen against Sandy Creek. We know how tough Sandy Creek is. I mean, Jabari Smith Jr. played for them. He's now with the Houston Rockets, played at Auburn. Just a very talented team. I'm just excited to see both the Carver Lady Tigers and Tigers in the Final Four. Thrift, actually, back to the Lady Tigers. They take on a very tough Wesleyan team that beat them in the Elite 8 last year. I was actually doing my research. Some of the top female basketball players in the state of Georgia. Guess what? Wesleyan has 2 of them. Brianna Preston is the number 1 high school girls basketball player. She is a 5'9" point guard who's committed to the University of Texas.
Wow.
And you also got Shadazi Wright, a 5'4" point guard who's committed to Georgia Tech. 2 of the top 5 girls basketball players in the state of Georgia. Unbelievable.
Sandy Creek's also got several, too, including Micah Smith. And they beat Monroe 75-44. That's a Monroe team that was, I think, one of the top 4 or 5 teams in 3A and just took them to the woodshed. Lumpkin County beat them by 70, 92-22. That was in the Sweet 16. And then they beat in the first round Stevens County by 50. So they just make lunch meat of everyone that's been in front of them, Sandy Creek has. And also, they lost on the road at Grayson, the number 1 team in the entire state of Georgia, by 1 point. On the road, 64-63.
Wow.
So that shows you how talented. They also beat Milton. They've beaten Creekside, East Coweta, Buford. I mean, They beat San Ann Pacelli only by 7, though, at home. I think that's a credit to Coach Black and his staff. They only lost by 7 to that Sandy Creek team on the road, albeit 2. But congratulations to Carver. Congratulations to Coach Allen. Just, again, proving why he is an excellent coach. And he has rebuilt not 1 but 2 programs, Spencer and now Carver. Really impressed by him. We haven't done a show, so we didn't get to talk last week about Brookstone losing the Elite 8. Coach Carl Ivory Jr., excellent season for them. This came up short against a really good Pacelli team. To be honest with you, I think they were underseeded. I think they should have been a little bit higher and not had that matchup, and who knows what could have happened. But great season for him. He's established a great culture, and I expect great things for that Brookstone program as they continue under the leadership of Carl Ivy Jr. And also shout out to Coach Kim Ellison. Her Brookstone Lady Cougars made it to the Elite 8. I don't think anybody was expecting that when like 90% of your offense left in Taylor Williams last year. And the fact they won a playoff game, made it to the Elite 8. Credit to Coach Kim Ellison. That just coaches in their blood. You got Kelly in the Final Four. Kim made it to the state championship last year. The Ellison sisters, they're going to be college coaches one day, no doubt in my mind. They're excellent and great job for Brookstone. And then finally, the Spencer Green Waves lost in the Sweet 16. They did not make it to the Elite 8. Lost at home to Butler. But great season. Keyshawn Sampton, I think he was one of the surprise players in our area when it comes to the boys' side. Put up 15 a game. We all know about Gary Gaither, Dozier. They've had several guys signed at the next level. And Coach Allen, Quintavious Allen, that's back there for a second stint. He was also a head coach during that state championship run 2 years ago. Back at Spencer, excellent season for them. Anything you want to add on that, Richard?
Yes, and also congratulations to Coach Tinch for the Spencer Lady Green Wave. They did lose to Dodge County in the Sweet 16, but they got to beat Vidalia in that first round. They were a number 2 seed, and they were also in a very tough region because Monroe was in their region, and they're in the Final Four. But no, never mind.
That's 2A.
No, that's in 3A. I'm thinking of Carver.
Central. You think about
Central. Central's actually in the Final Four. Central of Macon. So that was we saw them at the Spencer Region Tournament a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, congratulations to Coach Tinch and the Spencer Lady Green Wave.
Georgia Alabama Sports Live presented by Glynn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Get ready to smile. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to preview what's happening today on Georgia Alabama Sports Live with Border Wars. We got the Pacelli Vikings and Lady Vikings playing in the Final Four, and then what's coming up later on this weekend. We got a special show we're going to be doing live from Columbus State University on Saturday. We'll talk about that coming up next. But here is our friends from Glynn Smith Chevrolet and GMC.
Glynn Smith, GMC, and Opelika invite you to discover extraordinary deals like this powerful all-new GMC Sierra 1500 Pro, now up to $12,500 off. Purchase the roomy GMC Terrain SLT, discounted up to $8,750 off. And the GMC Acadia with 3-row seating, discounted up to $6,000 off. Enjoy no payments till summertime at Glynn Smith GMC. Over 300 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. Get ready to smile.
Welcome back, everyone. Thrift Barringer here. Richard Holdridge, Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show presented by Glynn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Go to glennsmith.com to see all their inventory. And I promise you, even look at it on the website. I want to see a smile on your face because of all the great deals, all the great inventory that is there on the lot and on the website. So thank you so much for them being a sponsor of ours. We're going to actually be doing a live show from their showroom here in the next couple of weeks. Cannot wait for that. Should be a lot of fun. We're also planning on going back live at Happy Hour Bar and Grill. So expect to see a lot more shows in person here as we continue through baseball season, and we'll be trucking along like we always do. And speaking of baseball, Richard, let's talk about today. We got Lakeside, and that is Coach Tony Rasmus, the longtime legendary coach from Russell County. He's the head of the Lakeside program, and they take on Pacelli, Adam Thomas, and the Pacelli Vikings, Carson Bowers. They've actually been the hottest team and got off to the best start, I think, out of a lot of teams. They've beaten Calvary, okay? They've taken care of business against some great programs around the state, specifically Calvary. I think that was a big-time win for their program as they're trying to get off to a hot start. And they take on Lakeside. And then, Richard, talk about some of the other games that are happening today.
Yeah, Pacelli right now will be 4-1 on the season. They're led by Omar Kimrose. He's batting .579 on the year. We know about Walker Hinton and his pitching, and he's doing a good job. When we talk about Glenwood, I mean, this is a team that won the state title last year, but they did lose a lot of firepower. You lose a guy like Jackson Milam, you lose a guy like Brandon McCrane. And also Jacob Page was their number one pitcher. I expect Tyler Sykes to be the starting pitcher. We also, Mason McCrane is probably going to take the mound at times. I mean, they do have some talented team. Glenwood does have a talented team, but, it is hard to repeat. But I do think that Glenwood is the favorites in the AISA. Coach Fanning has really got a good team that's ready to not only repeat, but, send off the AISA on a final note before they make that transition to the AHSAA. So Pacelli's got 2 games. They're taking on Glenwood at 2. Glenwood is taking on Stratford Academy at 4. That is a team in the GIAA in Macon. And then we'll get to see Brookstone later today, led by Coach Mathis. Brookstone in the GIAA will be featured in 2 games as well. And, I'm looking forward to seeing Brookstone as they will play at 6, as they will take on Macon East. That is out of Cecil, Montgomery, in the Montgomery area. Macon East and Macon County, just outside of Montgomery in the AISA. And then you got Brookstone taking on another AISA team, Bessemer Academy. That game is going to be at 8 o'clock tonight. So we got 5 games in the Border Wars, and you can catch all of them on Georgia Alabama Sports Live.
Yep, and I cannot wait. Thank you so much, Richard, for being there for that while I'm here at Milledgeville. And like I said, today we got 2 great matchups for our area, 4 in total for the GIAA. Loganville and George Walton is going to be a great matchup. Bullock versus George Walton. We already had yesterday Lakeview of 3A, boys and girls, made it to the state championship. Could we have Pacelli and George Walton having both their boys and girls programs in the state championship? We'll find out. But first, the Lady Vikings for Pacelli. They got to beat a team that beat them in the Elite 8 last year. It's a rematch against First Presbyterian Day. This is going to be a tough one. Pacelli has played excellent basketball, Richard, over the last few weeks. They haven't lost since January the 2nd. But this is a whole different animal. This is going to be one of their tougher matchups they've had in some time. So we'll see how it plays out. I expect the Lady Vikings to come out victorious, but should be a lot of fun to see them take on a really good program from First Presbyterian Day. And then for the boys, the Pacelli Vikings, they're the number 1 team in the GIAA. If you say, all right, put all 4 classifications together, who's the best team? And that is Pacelli. They have them ranked number 1. They have them ranked in the top 25, Richard, of all classifications. That's GAPS included, GIAA, all 7 classification of the GHSA. Richard, come on now. That's pretty impressive what Coach Black has built from the ground up, and he's back in the Final Four, taking on a really good Cristo Rey team who beat, and we watched that last week, Richard, a Strong Rock team who was ranked number 4. Cristo Rey, I thought they were in control of most of the game, and they got a big win with the leadership of Jadance Crawford. They're in the Final Four, so Pacelli can't overlook it, trying to get back to state. They've been preaching about playing in their hometown at Columbus State University on Saturday. They got to get past Cristo Rey first. That's at 7:30. But Jadance Ford, TJ Smith, who's had a bit of an off game these last several weeks, they get back on track the way Jalen Bush has played, AZ Justy. Pacelli will be just fine. Just can't make turnovers. Don't be sloppy. And I saw it yesterday. Teams got off to slow starts. You get off to slow starts, you keep a team like Cristo Rey in it and keep them with confidence. Anything can happen down the stretch, especially in a neutral location like that. So Pacelli, both their teams got to get off to a hot start. And it's pretty good for the Lady Vikings, Richard. Tamaya Ransom is back after dealing with an injury. That's huge. They need her back, and they need her X-factorness, if I can say that, coming off the bench. So we'll see how those 2 teams, as they got big-time matchups today, 3 and 7:30 on the GIAA.TV.
And we are looking forward to seeing them today in the Final Four, because we want to see both the Pacelli girls and Pacelli boys at Columbus State. How electric would that be? And Coach Black was talking to his team, talking about the goal is still at hand to try to get to just 2 miles up the road. Columbus State, playing in your own backyard.
Unreal.
That is
Over
the ultimate goal.
3,000 miles that they've traveled, Richard. You know how far they said that would take you from Columbus? You know where it'd take you?
San
Your
Francisco.
hometown, San Francisco. That's a
Yeah.
long way. They've been traveling this year, all the road games to prepare them for this moment. This is why you play the tough games. Same with the Lady Vikings. This is why you schedule a tough schedule, even though you may take some lumps in the road. You may have more losses than you would like. That's why you do it. That's why you play at a Sandy Creek and at a Newton and play a Christian Heritage, these top-notch level public schools. And they're 2 games away, man. They got to take care of today, and then they can eventually, hopefully, we'll have multiple state champions, including the Pacelli Vikings and Lady Vikings. So we expect great things from them. I also want to say thank you to the CV Sports Hall of Fame, Richard. They did a ceremony Saturday. It was my first Hall of Fame ceremony. And a guy that coached me in high school, legend in this area, 14 state championships, 8 in football, 15 state championships, 8 in softball, 7 in basketball, 4 for the boys, 3 for the girls, 15 state championships for Coach Dusty Perdue. I mean, the records are through the roof. He's won like 500 basketball games, only lost 100 in the boys. And then the girls the last couple of years, add that to it too. Dusty Perdue in the Hall of Fame. Also, Dale McGee getting into the Hall of Fame. Mason Lampton, Monk Johnson, who I've had on the Sports Visions radio show. You can listen with me and DJ Jones. We got a best up today, 4 to 6 p.m. We'll be back in studio on Monday, Richard. So looking forward to that. Monk Johnson came on our show when he knew and found out he was going to get inducted in the Hall of Fame, and now excellent job for him. He was funny, great speech, and also to Tommy Mac Chambers. We got to interview all of them, Richard. Chris hadn't been able to put up the video yet, but we're going to actually put that up here in the next week or so. That's something that we can put up at any time. And Dale McGee, also, guy that played for my granddad, Coach Larry Bush, legend in this area, Richard, gave him credit. We talked about that a little bit before we were doing interviews. It's good to meet him finally and tell him about the stories my granddad told about coaching him. But now to see him go from what I thought he was a legend at Carver all those years, winning state championships, he could walk on water, what he was doing in this area, especially at Carver that never won anything, to win state championships, make it a state championship, make it a semifinals, then to get an opportunity to get in the college ranks, go to Auburn, go to Georgia Southern, and finally get an opportunity at Georgia. And then when he got to Georgia, he wasn't what he's known now. He had to work his butt off to become one of the best national recruiters we have in the college football circuit. Also a great running backs coach. You see many of his players are definitely at the next level, Nick Chubb being one of them. And then now see him being the head coach of Georgia State. It was only a matter of time. We were so happy for him. And I think this is only a stopping point, man. I don't think he's going to be here for a long period of time. I think he's going to win. I think he's going to either make Georgia Tech better because they don't want to be outshined by Georgia State, or they're going to be better than Georgia Tech, and he's taking Georgia State to a place they've never been. Either way, I expect them to be heading to a Power 5 conference here in the near future. But congratulations to Del McGee and all the Hall of Fame participants for getting in this year.
Yeah, I talked to WMAZ's Marvin James on my podcast, The Sports Beat, and he's a proud Georgia Southern alum. He played football at Georgia Southern. He's happy for Del McGee, but he's also, as a Georgia Southern fan, very nervous because it looks like Georgia State could dominate the Sun Belt. Tony Reese from WTVM, he is a Troy grad. He probably, as he roots for Troy, I mean, he's probably nervous too. I think that Georgia State is really going to put the Sun Belt on notice. But one thing I do want to say about Monk Johnson, I forgot to mention this. I saw him at the Hardaway game. He was wearing his 49ers hat. I shook his hand. I congratulated him again. He's just a local staple in this community and a huge sports fan. So why wouldn't he be at the biggest game in Columbus, one of the biggest games on Tuesday? And it was just great to see Monk there at the Hardaway game. Yeah,
it was. And I love Monk Johnson. He's a great guy, man. And I'm glad that he was able to get in. I'm glad that I was able to talk with him, and just a lot of fun. So thank y'all again for allowing us to be there for that at the ceremony. And then we went to the Elite Eight and broadcast. It was just a busy day that day. We were even at the 100-inning fundraiser put on by Steve Smith. He raised over $35,000. Congratulations to him. And his goal is 150 or 100 or 150,000 because there's so much work that he wants to get done to take his facilities to the point where it meets the standards of the on-field success, because Calvary's, I think, one of the best programs, if not the best, in our area. So he needed to raise that money. I played 100 innings, started at 8 o'clock, played the JV and varsity played both, combined about 30 or 40 innings, maybe 50, and then you had alumni, you had little leaguers, you had middle schoolers, you had parents all playing in different games against each other throughout the day. We were able to be there and interview Coach Steve Smith, Gwen. We were able to interview her, the public relations and marketing person at Calvary. Even got to talk to a player, the second baseman too. So thank you, Steve, for allowing us to be there. Had a lot of fun in that aspect. But I just want to say thank you to the CB Sports Hall of Fame for allowing us to be there. So coming up today, we got board awards all day, as Richard talked about. GIAA.TV, $29.99, 4 games to be able to watch excellent basketball, hear myself call with Ben Spicer. Please do that. It is worth the money. I promise you that. I'll be sharing the link here in just a little bit, Richard. And then we have Saturday, I think, unique but fun game day. I don't want to call it high school game day because that's not what it is, but it's like that because it's going to be a pre-show for the state championship broadcasts that are going to be happening there. And hopefully the Lady Vikings and Vikings are in it so that we can talk about them. But we're going to be there regardless. We're going to be interviewing hopefully some CSU people like Jay Sparks and others. And we are excited to be able to do that, Richard. Maybe interview some guests. And just doing a live show from CSU, the home of the GIAA state championship games. And we'll talk about the Final Four games like Hardaway and Carver. And actually Hardaway and both Carver teams playing the Final Four on Saturday, Richard. So we'll preview that and more. Saturday, 12 o'clock. Make sure to tune in. But we're going to play one more break. When we come back, talk a little college basketball, and then we're going to get out of here. Georgia, Alabama Sports Live Show presented by Glynn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Get ready to smile.
Here are 3 great Chevrolet offers from Glynn Smith in Opelika. Check out the powerful full-size and fully loaded Chevrolet Silverado High Country, discounted up to $13,000 off. Or the roomy midsize 3-row SUV, the Chevy Traverse, discounted up to $8,000 off. And the perfect size Chevy Equinox, up to $7,500 off. No payments until summertime. Over 300 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. Get ready to smile.
You see that inventory hotline. Get ready to smile. I promise you, you're going to see like, man, most car dealerships don't have the inventory Glynn Smith Chevrolet and GMC does. Hence why people drive there. Opelika, 600 Opelika Parkway. This is why people go there, Richard, for this exact reason. High college basketball, Auburn came up short against a really good Tennessee team on the road. I expected them to lose that game, but Auburn, I think, had 3 winnable games to end the season. Mississippi State at home, at Missouri, and then Georgia at home. They win those 3. They finish 25-7, 13-5 in the SEC, a top 4 seed in the SEC tournament. They will be a 3 or 4 seed depending on what they do in the SEC tournament, maybe lowest 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. So great season for them, and they're doing this without Jalen Williams. They put up 84 points against one of the best defensive teams in the country. Just Dalton Nett decided to put up 39 points. That was the factor in that. But Auburn with a great showing against them. And then when they get Jalen back, one of their best players, I think this team is deep. They're showing that Janey Johnson, who didn't even get that many minutes, he's picked up a lot since Jalen's been out. He's played sensational these last 2 games. So Auburn, Alabama's in it. And there's like 7 or 8 other SEC teams. If you look at the favorites this year, I think it's UConn, Purdue, but Kansas keeps losing because of how great that Big 12 conference is.
Right.
But I couldn't tell you who I would put money on, Richard. That's why this year, normally when I pick in a bracket, you try to say, all right, the favorites usually make it a long way into the bracket. It didn't happen last year, and I don't know if it's going to happen this year, man. I really don't. A team like Houston, as good as they played in the Big 12, can get upset because I think the talent disparity and it's so low. It's not a wide gap. It's very razor thin, which allows upsets to happen, which makes for a great NCAA tournament. But for guys like us that are trying to analyze it and you're asking for our opinion, your guess is as good as ours.
You're right, Thrift. The field is wide open. UConn is the odds-on favorite, but we haven't had a back-to-back champion since the 06-07 Florida Gators. And UConn, even though they have won 5 championships, they've never won back-to-back. What's impressive about UConn is, and I consider them a blue blood, is they've won 5 championships with 3 different head coaches.
Yeah,
But a lot of those championships, they caught some breaks. They took
did.
on a San Diego State team that was just happy to be there. What about
Happy.
it? Playing Butler that was happy to be there, or Georgia Tech in '04. I mean, I think that UConn could be tested if they play like a Kansas or North Carolina in the Final Four or in the championship. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that North Carolina, because they have won 3 championships in this last century. I think that North Carolina, remember, they were a young team that went to the Final Four 2 years ago under Hubert Davis. I think that North Carolina could be a dark horse to win the championship. But you're right, it is wide open. I'm looking at the SEC standings. By the way, 6 of the teams in the top 25, they're expecting about 7 or 8 teams to get into the tournament. Right now, they've listed Ole Miss as a bubble team. I mean, come on. They've won 19 games and they're a bubble team? Mississippi State's projected to be a number 8 seed. LSU's record's not really all that impressive. I mean, even though they have some pretty big wins. But I'm looking at this. I'm thinking maybe 8 teams get into the NCAA tournament.
I see that too. And A&M's right there on the bubble as well. Florida, really good team. Mississippi State, they're an 8 seed. But then Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, Alabama, and Auburn, those 6 schools, they could make some noise in the NCAA tournament. That's how talented they are. And they're also going to be higher seeds too. 2 things I do want to end the show on, Richard, though, and they're hot takes. As again, when conference tournament starts, and then we're going to have a huge mega preview show of the NCAA tournament. We're even going to have on Jonathan Shusky, a.k.a. Buckets, on to preview the NCAA tournament. You're not going to want to miss that here in the next couple of weeks. But with that being said, though, Richard, I do got to say this. 2 hot takes I want in on Thrift's steaming hot takes, okay? 1, the NBA is a travesty. What I saw in that All-Star game, throw it away. This is why it was my birthday, and normally I like watching the All-Star game because it happens on my birthday weekend. Did not even care about it, Richard. I'd rather do anything else, and which I did. I went to a nice dinner and show, which was really cool, at Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I'd rather do anything than watch that trash. Second, the NBA as a whole right now in the regular season, the ratings are down, man, and nobody cares about it. Nobody cares that the Boston Celtics are the best team we've had in several seasons, and it's having an excellent year. They're going to win over 60 games. Nobody cares because the regular season is meaningless because of how the players have treated it. And I don't know what the option is, too, when you got no defense being played. Now you got Adam Silver coming out saying they're going to extend the three-point line to hope giving defenses a challenge. I think they're going to have to go even a step further than that, Richard. They're going to have to bring back hand checking. They're going to have to allow the guys to be physical because how much spacing there is in the game, maybe not to the extent of the way it was played in the 90s. We don't want to watch that, or the early 2000s. That was bad basketball too. But we got to find a fine line right in the middle between that type of basketball and what we're seeing now, which is literally no defense being played at all and a bunch of scoring. And it's partly why we haven't talked a lot. I mean, LeBron got a great win last night. Came back from 21 points. Something like that should be talked about a lot, but it's in the back burner because nobody cares about what's going on in the NBA right now. And I hate it because it's one of the leagues and one of the sports I love the most. And when playoff basketball starts, this is my favorite playoffs, more than NFL, more than college football, more than baseball. It's the NBA. And right now, it is just not looking good in the regular season. And honestly, I keep up with the standings. I watch, highlights. I haven't watched a full game this entire year because I don't care about watching that unless it's a playoff atmosphere type game. So it'll be probably April before I really dive in to what I think should be a good, fun playoff, especially in the West. It's wide open. East, I think it's Boston and everybody else. But there's my hot take, Richard. Just come on. We got to do better than that. And I expect stuff like this to hopefully get fixed here in the near future.
One thing I cannot stand is when teams flip the switch when you get into the postseason. You have a great story with Minnesota and OKC that are fighting for the number one seed. It's not going to matter because if they play the Lakers in the first round, the Lakers will just flip the switch like LeBron's teams always do. The Lakers right now are the number 9 seed. They would have to play the Golden State Warriors in the play-in game. I mean, that could go either way. I mean, what if Steph Curry gets hot? I mean, the Lakers would be the 8th seed and they'd play either Minnesota or OKC. You got to say that they're the favorites because they've been there before. They went all the way to the Western Conference Finals. I do feel that these are nice stories. For the Minnesota Timberwolves fans should be happy that they're fighting for the number 1 seed. OKC, I do think right now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Anthony Edwards, I think more SGA. I think SGA should be the front runner because for the MVP because OKC, nobody expected them to be fighting for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference.
I think that's a good point, Richard. And we'll give our takes on who's going to be the MVP and pick all that. Because remember, we did that at the beginning of the season. We'll hit that here as we get closer to the end of the season. I wish it was better basketball being played.
I do too.
And then there's also optimism that there's going to be a 14-team playoff. And I see both sides of the fence when it comes to the college football playoff. And I think I'm leaning towards, I don't know if this is good for the sport. And honestly, you're just going to be adding, like the needle in the haystack or, adding not the needle in the haystack, but the straw that broke the camel's back. Remember how the straw is very thin. I mean, it's very little, but the camel's carrying so much other weight that something like that just mentally broke him. I'm seeing that for college football right now, man. If they don't do something about the NIL, the transfer portal, and where this is heading, and then you're going to add a 14-team college football playoff, are we talking about meaningless regular season? I don't think it's going to get to the point like we're seeing with the NBA and Major League Baseball because of how long it is. But, man, with a generation of kids, when it's hard to find something they care about in general and get them to have that it's cool to care, it's cool to carry yourself in this manner, to then add saying, hey, 14 teams, you lose 3 games, you can still be in the playoff and win a national championship. They're going to see if they're losing a game, well, who cares? We can just let this one go. We're still going to be good in the playoffs. You don't want that mentality. I know that's hard for coaches. So,
Nope.
2 sports, NBA and college football. They're in danger zone time, I like to say, Richard. Something's got to happen. Something's got to change. We'll see if something does. I don't know, but I'm worried if it doesn't, where both of them are heading. And it's not a place I think either of the fans that support these leagues and this sport want it to go.
Not at all. I'm not a fan of the 14-team playoff. Let's just get past the 12-team playoff. I want to see what that looks like. I mean, it's going to be fun. I actually can't wait for like a number 5 seed hosting that first round of the playoff game. I know they're talking about, well, we're not going to have extra weeks. It just means only the number 1 and number 2 seeds get a bye. But I do like the 5+7 format. I do like if you win your conference championship that you get at least a 1 through 4, and then you have the other conferences that they're not necessarily guaranteed a 5 seed. Like if a Tulane or a Memphis wins their conference, they could still be a number 12 seed. So listen
to what you're saying right now. That's what we're talking about. Like, come on, we got to do better, Richard.
Yeah,
we got to, and that's what I'm hoping something will change. Well, thank y'all so much for tuning in again today. Coming up, actually, right now it's happening. We got Pacelli taking on Lakeview. Then we got Glenwood, Pacelli. We got Brookstone playing. Just a lot of great teams around. We don't get Calvary yet, but we'll get them here soon. Richard, you'll be there all day, 5 games. Thank you so much for doing that. I'll be at the Georgia College and State University for the 4A Final Four. Make sure to tune in to GIAA.TV for those broadcasts. Thank y'all so much. And thank you to Glynn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Get ready to smile. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. We'll see you Saturday at 12 for the Georgia-Alabama Sports Live Show special edition presented by Glynn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Good night. Good day. Not good night anymore.